Something moves through this landscape that no eye can follow. Before the lion crests the ridge, before a single blade of grass bends beneath its paw, the savannah already knows. A ripple spreads outward across still earth. Not water, not wind. Something older and far more deliberate. Dawn over the Serengeti, and the light arrives slowly, apologetically, as though reluctant to disturb what waits in the dark. At first glance, stillness. 1,000 animals grazing, drinking, simply standing, as though nothing in this world could threaten them. But look again at the edges, the way a wildebeest lifts its head, holds it, then holds it a fraction longer than hunger or thirst could explain. Something has shifted, and every creature on this plain has registered it, before any of us saw a thing. The ostrich is the first signal we can measure. Its eyes, the largest of any land animal on Earth, sweep a horizon nearly 3 kilometers away. It does not run immediately, and that restraint is itself a message, precise and deliberately timed. But here is what stops researchers cold. The alarm does not spread the way sound travels, outward from a single point in a neat expanding ring. It erupts in patches, simultaneously, as though the grass itself is passing the word beneath our feet. And then, just as suddenly, total silence. Not the silence of an empty place, but the silence of a place holding its breath. Every animal tuned to a frequency science is still struggling to name. We have spent centuries watching Africa's wild animals and cataloging what they do, the charge, the flight, the kill. We filmed the violence and called it nature. But the violence, it turns out, is the last word in a conversation that began long before any predator moved. The real language, ancient, layered, astonishingly precise, lives in the stillness that precedes everything. Notice the elephant at the waterhole's edge. Mid-stride, she stops and presses one foot, softly, deliberately, into the dust. What she is doing, we will return to. And when we do, it will change everything you thought you knew about intelligence in the wild. The question is not whether these animals communicate danger. The question is whether we are finally equipped to listen. Watch a zebra standing at the water's edge, perfectly still. Every muscle locked, ears angled back, weight shifting almost imperceptibly to the rear haunches. To a casual observer, it is doing nothing. But to every animal within 100 meters, that posture is a broadcast. Precise, structured, impossible to ignore. The body, it turns out, is never silent. Researchers studying posture signaling in ungulate herds, have begun to document something that feels almost grammatical. A set of physical orientations that carry distinct meaning depending on context, direction, and the identity of the animal sending them. A head held high is not simply alertness. It is a declaration about distance and confidence. A head angled low, chin tucked, weight pressed forward. That is something else entirely. And the herd reads both without hesitation. African buffalo take this further than almost any other species on the open plain. When a herd must choose which direction to move, individual animals simply stand and orient their bodies toward their preferred route, and the collective gaze of the herd resolves the decision. No sound, no aggression, no hierarchy overriding the signal, only posture and the weight of shared attention. What is remarkable is not that they communicate this way, but that the system works across hundreds of animals simultaneously. Each one both sender and receiver in the same instant. And that resolution, when it comes, is not abrupt. A slow reorientation ripples outward through the herd, unhurried, each animal falling into line without a word exchanged. The same principle scales down to the individual and the intimate. A wildebeest calf reads its mother's shoulder angle to gauge whether to run or freeze. A single degree of difference in that angle may be the margin between escape and capture. These are not approximations. They are calibrated signals, refined across generations into something approaching a shared vocabulary of survival. And yet, here is the question that stays open. If posture carries this much information at the range of sight, what travels when nothing can be seen at all? When darkness closes in, when dust and distance swallow every visible cue, the body still needs to speak. And some signals, science is beginning to suspect, do not travel through air or light or open ground. They travel through the earth itself. There is a frequency beneath all of this, beneath the posture, the glance, the turned shoulder, that no human ear has ever caught in the wild, not because it is faint, but because it exists below the floor of our perception entirely. Science has a name for this layer: infrasound, vibrations, traveling at frequencies too low for human hearing, yet capable of moving through air, through soil, through the bodies of animals standing hundreds of meters apart. The giraffe mentioned earlier in our story, that motionless silhouette at dawn, eyes scanning the tree line, was not merely watching. Research suggests it may also have been transmitting low-frequency resonances that, according to current findings, can carry outward far beyond what any eye could reach. Possibly a signal sent before the danger was even confirmed. Think about what that means. A warning issued not in response to threat, but in anticipation of one. And here is where the science grows genuinely strange. Because if the giraffe is broadcasting, something else must be receiving. Detecting infrasound in the field requires instruments sensitive enough to register vibrations that would pass through a human observer without leaving any trace of their presence. For most of our history studying these animals, that layer was simply invisible to us, not absent, but unreadable. Only recently have researchers begun placing ground sensors and directional microphones across open terrain, building what amounts to a listening post for a conversation we were never invited to join. What they are finding suggests that this channel, this sub-bass thread running underneath the visible language of posture and movement, may be among the oldest forms of coordinated communication in the animal kingdom. Older, possibly, than the signals we can see. That single ripple, the one we watched move outward from nothing in the first light of dawn, carrying information no eye could read, was never metaphor. It was always literal. But sound, even infrasound, is only one invisible channel, and the savannah keeps more than one. If a signal can travel through Earth, what can it leave behind? And how long does it linger after the animal that made it is already gone? The ground beneath an African savanna holds more than dust and root. Every step a lion takes, every pause, every change in direction, pressed into the soil as chemistry, not memory. A scent mark is not a simple alarm. It is something closer to a document. It records identity, physical condition, direction of travel, and crucially, how long ago. A prey animal crossing a predator's trail is not reacting to danger. It is reading a file, and that file degrades by the hour, shifting in chemical signature as volatile compounds break down under heat and wind. In the dry season, when moisture no longer anchors scent molecules to Earth, a trail that was fresh at dawn may read as hours old by mid-morning. The impala does not panic equally at every trace. It measures the decay and calculates a margin. What scientists have begun to understand is that prey species are not simply detecting the presence of a predator. They are estimating its timeline. The leopard that passed here, was it moving or resting, circling or retreating? Each answer is encoded in the scent itself. If the reader is fluent, fluency, it turns out, is a survival variable. Animals with greater scent discrimination ability navigate contested ground with measurably different confidence. The territory is not just space, it is a layered archive of every predator that moved through it, each entry time-stamped in chemistry. If scent can map time and identity across empty ground, what else travels through the earth long after the danger has gone? Watch the matriarch stand absolutely still, one foot pressed into the dust. She is listening. She is listening through bone and soil to a conversation happening kilometers away, at a frequency no human ear can reach. Elephants generate infrasound, vibrations traveling not through air, but through the ground itself, carrying across open terrain to other herds far beyond the horizon. The ground beneath them is saturated with signal, moving constantly beneath every footstep. But here is what disturbs the picture. These pulses arrive before any visible threat appears. A herd kilometers distant may already be shifting direction in response to a danger the receiving herd has not yet seen, not yet smelled, not yet sensed by any means we previously recognized. The warning travels ahead of its cause. Science is still working out how precisely the foot and leg bones of a large elephant translate ground vibration into meaningful information. How the body becomes, in effect, an antenna pressed against the earth. What researchers can say is this: the network is real, it is active, and it does not pause. Even now, beneath the stillness of a midday plain shimmering under open sky, pulses are crossing the ground, carrying intelligence from one family group to another. Consider the scale of what that means. A single matriarch, standing at the center of her range, may be drawing on information gathered across dozens of square kilometers. Not through memory, not through sight, but through the ground beneath her feet, vibrating with the movements and alarms of animals she will never see. That matriarch we watched at dawn, one foot pressed softly into the dust. She is not waiting. She is already listening to a conversation happening kilometers away. Vibrations rising through the bones of her foot, carrying meaning from herds she will never see. And then there is the question the instruments are only beginning to frame. If scent endures in soil for hours after a predator passes, and infrasound travels kilometers through the earth in real time, what happens at the one place on the savannah where every channel converges at once, where predator and prey are forced to share the same few meters of ground, drinking from the same water? A waterhole is not neutral ground. Every animal that drinks here leaves something behind. A pressure in the mud, a chemistry in the water's edge, a vibration that has not yet finished traveling. Long before any predator steps into the light, this place is already speaking. Hippopotamuses move through the shallows, their skin weeping that distinctive reddish secretion, sunscreen, antiseptic, and something more. A chemical declaration of exactly who has been here and for how long. The water remembers every visitor. Scent trails pool at the bank where the soil stays damp, concentrating days of traffic into a single dense record. Prey species approaching the edge are not just smelling danger, they are reading its age. But here is where it becomes complicated. At a waterhole, multiple signals arrive simultaneously. Scent from the bank says a lion passed hours ago. But ground vibration says something large is moving closer, right now. 2 channels, 2 different messages, neither of them wrong. Watch the impala at the water's edge, nostrils working the old scent trail, one foreleg raised, body suspended between drinking and flight. She is not frozen by fear. She is computing, weighing a past signal against a present one, deciding which version of reality to trust. A misread here is irreversible. Elephants may compound the problem further. Their infrasound pulses rippling outward through the saturated ground beneath the waterhole could carry information that smaller animals can feel but cannot fully interpret. A warning built for one body size arrives in another, slightly mistranslated. Researchers have begun placing recording arrays around active waterholes, capturing the full acoustic and chemical landscape in the same moment. And what emerges is not harmony but interference. Signals contradicting, overlapping, each one true in its own register. The waterhole is not a crossroads, it is a collision. And in that collision, every animal must choose which language to believe. When science finally captures all these channels together, infrasound, scent, posture, vibration, in a single behavioral event, what does the data reveal about how a wild mind actually resolves that contradiction? And what does it tell us about the limits of our own instruments trying to follow it? For the first time, the instruments were all running at once. Infrasound recorders, chemical air samplers, and long lens cameras locked on the same herd, the same moment. What came back from the data was not what the researchers expected. The low-frequency pulses and the chemical signals were not redundant. They were not saying the same thing twice. They were saying different things, timed differently, carrying different layers of meaning across different distances. A single behavioral event, one herd shifting direction at dusk, was generating simultaneous signals in at least 3 channels that science had previously studied only in isolation. That realization changed the question entirely. Researchers had spent decades building models of how individual signal types function, how a chemical trail decays, how a ground pulse attenuates across open terrain. But the combined data suggested something no single model had anticipated. The channels do not merely coexist, they appear to calibrate each other. And at the center of that calibration, consistently, was the matriarch, standing longer than the others, before any decision. One foot held against the ground well past the moment her body needed to balance, as though stillness itself were a form of data collection. She carries decades of spatial memory, not just where water lies, but the history of what has happened near it, layered into her responses like strata in dry rock. The instruments could record what she produced. The pressure waves, the postural shifts, the chemical traces she left in passing. What they could not record was how she weighted them, which signal she chose to act on when two channels gave conflicting information. That gap is not a technical failure waiting for a better sensor. It may be the signature of something that no instrument is yet built to measure, a form of collective integration that emerges only when every channel is active at once. A ripple moves outward, and somewhere the herd reads its shape. But what happens when every surface is moving at the same time? The herd is grazing, unhurried, spread across open ground in the amber of late afternoon. One impala raises its head, nostrils flared, then lowers it again. Not enough, not yet. This is the false calm, a state where individual signals, a single scent thread on the air, a faint tremor in the earth, a distant posture read across 300 meters, arrive below the threshold that triggers flight. But something is building. What happens when those channels do not arrive in sequence, but simultaneously? When the body must process every layer of the hidden language in a single compressed instant. The giraffe at the perimeter is already reading it, that panoramic gaze sweeping from 5 meters above the grass, taking in what no other animal in the herd can see. Then, within seconds, the scent concentrates, ground vibration sharpens, and a flash of white rump patches ignites across the herd like a current through wire. The sensory storm breaks. What looks from the outside like pure chaos is, researchers now believe, something far stranger, a burst of distributed processing. Every animal contributing a fragment of information to a decision no single individual is making alone. The herd moves as one body, but the signals feeding that movement are arriving through 4 entirely different sensory systems at 4 different speeds, carrying 4 different kinds of certainty. Here is what makes this so difficult to map. The prey animal's brain does not cue those signals and evaluate them in order. It weighs them all at once, in a fraction of a second, against a lifetime of accumulated pattern. And somewhere in that compression, a decision crystallizes, run, freeze, or hold, before a single tooth has broken the surface of the grass. Watch the zebra herd filmed from above, that shifting monochrome blur we first glimpsed earlier. The optical confusion of those stripes is not merely defense against the eye, but a kind of interference, fragmenting the very visual signal a predator needs to isolate one body from the mass. The storm of signals, it turns out, is also a storm of noise, and noise, deliberately generated, may be part of the language itself. But if this grammar is so layered, so precisely interlocked, if a herd can flood every sensory channel and still move with hidden coherence, then why do some animals, reading the same signals in the same moment, still fail to survive? Every animal we have followed survived long enough to be studied. But across Africa's grasslands, for every individual that read the signals correctly and fled, another did not. And the difference between them is what science has struggled hardest to explain. language of danger, it turns out, is not a perfect system. It has blind spots, and those blind spots are inherited, individual, and sometimes fatal. Consider what happens when two signals arrive from opposite directions at exactly the same moment. A scent trail from the east, a low ground tremor from the west. The body must commit to one before the other can be confirmed. That fraction of a second, that forced grammatical choice, is where the breakdown lives. Researchers observing prey behavior during ambush events have noted something quietly troubling. Animals that appeared fully alert, ears forward, nostrils wide, posture braced, still failed to move in time. They were reading, just reading the wrong line. The wildebeest calf we watched at dawn does exactly this, watches its mother's shoulder angle to decide whether to freeze or bolt, a signal system seeded early in life through thousands of repetitions. But when the mother herself misreads a conflicting cue, the calf inherits the error exactly, faithfully, with no correction available. One wrong clause passed down in an instant. Then there is the problem of experience, or the absence of it. Younger individuals, still learning which combinations of signals constitute genuine threat rather than background interference, carry a measurably higher vulnerability during the critical reading window. The grammar exists inside them, but fluency takes time. And time is precisely what a leopard's silent approach does not give. A ripple moves outward across the dust. But this time, something intercepts it before it reaches the edge of the herd. Density, wind shift, the lateral body mass of 60 animals moving together. Any one of these can absorb a signal before it propagates far enough to matter. The herd itself, the very structure that amplifies warning in open terrain, can, under certain geometries, create pockets of silence. Dead zones inside a living network. What strikes researchers most is not that the system fails occasionally, but that it fails in patterns, the same topographies, the same moments of signal overlap, the same developmental gaps, recurring across species and decades. The grammar is ancient, but it was never designed to be flawless. It was designed to be good enough most of the time, for most individuals. The ones for whom it is not are simply never heard from again. Which raises a question that no field study has yet answered cleanly. If prey animals carry these predictable grammatical blind spots, is it possible that Africa's predators have already learned to write directly into them? But here is the question no signal system can fully answer. What happens when the predator learns to speak it? Not to silence the language, to inhabit it. A lioness approaching a zebra herd does not simply charge across open ground. She moves at an angle, low and unhurried, in a posture that reads to every watching eye as indifferent. Body language that says, "I am not hunting yet." And the herd, reading that posture against everything else it knows, adjusts its alert threshold downward by a fraction, just enough. This is not instinct misfiring on the predator's part. Researchers studying large felid approach behavior have documented patterns consistent with postural suppression, what some describe as a deliberate reduction of the very signals that would trigger flight. The predator is not breaking the grammar. It is conjugating the verb differently. And this deception has its own counter. Consider the zebra herd, whose moving stripes fragment any clean visual read of direction, of number, of individual boundary. But predators that hunt zebra regularly appear to show adapted pursuit angles, tracking the herd's edge rather than its center, reading the one place where the visual field may momentarily resolve. The deception evolved, and then the counter-deception evolved to answer it. This is the arms race at its most vertiginous. Neither side is winning because neither side can afford to stop. What science is beginning to map is not just the signals themselves, but the layers of counterfeit woven through them. Sense oppression, slowed breathing, a route chosen to keep airflow between predator and prey. Each one a sentence written in the prey's own alphabet, by the predator. The language that evolved to protect is the same language now used to betray. That single fact forces a rethinking of everything the previous signals seem to guarantee. And yet the prey persists because the network persists, because no single animal is reading alone. Which brings us to the only question that now matters. If this intelligence belongs not to any one body but to the living web between them, can it ever truly be deceived, or only overwhelmed? Science has named the signals now, measured their frequency, mapped their range. The infrasound pulse, the chemical trail, the angled shoulder, the stiff-legged leap, each has been recorded, cataloged, assigned a function, and yet something keeps slipping past the instruments. When researchers lay out every decoded signal side by side, a strange problem emerges. The whole behaves differently from the sum of its parts. A herd does not simply react to individual cues. It appears to integrate them, weigh them against one another, and arrive at a collective decision no single animal could have reached alone. The matriarch presses one foot softly into the dust, as she has always done, and around her, without a sound, the others in the herd have already begun to read her. The angle of her weight, the duration of her stillness, each body adjusting its own posture in response to hers, before she has moved a single step. That gap between what the instruments record and what she actually decides may be the most important data point of all. So the question that has been quietly building across every signal decoded, every channel mapped, finally surfaces. Where does the intelligence live? Inside the individual animal. Its memory, its experience, its capacity to weigh conflicting signals under pressure, or distributed across the network itself. The herd, the ripples spreading outward through dry earth, the chemical archive buried in the soil, the buffalo wall of horns holds the young at its center. Not because any single animal decided, but because the formation emerged from every body reading every other body at once. That is not instinct in the old sense of the word. It is something that forces science to reach for a different vocabulary entirely. And if the intelligence is truly distributed, if it belongs to the network rather than any one mind, then what does that mean for every assumption we have carried about where thought begins and ends in the wild? Science arrived with neat categories and clean boundaries. Then the data began doing something unexpected. When researchers overlaid recordings from multiple species in the same landscape, signals that had seemed unrelated began arriving in sequence. One channel triggering a response that primed the next. A ripple spreading outward across dry earth, touching things far beyond its origin. What they were watching was not a collection of isolated warnings, but something closer to a relay. Each species both receiver and transmitter in a chain that crossed habitat boundaries and taxonomic lines alike. The impala's pronk, once understood only as a signal directed at the predator immediately present, a display of physical fitness meant to deter it, carries information that other species may also read, even if they were never the intended audience. Alarm is not species-specific. Oxpeckers lifting from a buffalo's back announce something not just to the buffalo, but to every animal within sight that has learned what the departure of those birds means. The question scientists are now pressing against is whether this constitutes a system, something with its own internal grammar, or whether it is simply coincidence, reinforced by millions of years of proximity. The honest answer for now is that no instrument has been able to capture the whole at once. Every study sees its own fragment. Infrasound without scent, posture without sound, color flash without the ground signal running beneath it. Science is assembling the puzzle one piece at a time on a continent that does not pause to wait for it. And yet, even the fragments point somewhere. They point toward a network so old, so deeply woven into the behavior of every animal that moves across this landscape, that calling it a language may not be metaphor at all. If that is true, if the savannah itself is the sentence, and every living creature in it a word, then where, precisely, does understanding end and something else entirely begin? We have always measured animal intelligence against ourselves, asking whether another creature can learn, reason, or fashion a tool, as though intelligence were a single thing, with a single address. That standard was built for minds, shaped by language, by schooling, by written memory. It was never designed for a mind that encodes fear into the ground beneath its feet. Consider what it actually requires to compress the identity, direction, and elapsed time of an approaching threat into a single chemical trace laid into dry soil, and then to read it accurately, under pressure, at a full run. Or to translate a barely perceptible tilt of a predator's shoulder into a binary decision, move now or hold absolutely still. The wildebeest calf we watched earlier does exactly this, reading its mother's angle before it is old enough to have been taught anything at all. That is not a rehearsed behavior waiting to be triggered. Something more precise is happening, a fluency earned not over a lifetime, but across millions of years of